Welcome to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken. Shep will talk with some of the smartest thinkers in business to help make you more successful in your professional and personal life. This is Amazing Business Radio with Shep Hyken.
Hello, everybody. It's Shep Hyken here. We're back with another episode of Amazing Business Radio. We have a great guest, actually a three-peater, and that is Josh Liebman. And he has a brand new book, The Hospitality Mentality. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I believe every company in any industry, regardless of what you do, should subscribe to an idea referred to as the hospitality mentality. Now, before we jump into the interview, a couple of quick things. Number one, if you've got a story to share or a question to ask, I want you to reach out to me on any of the social channels, because I am there, I'm everywhere, and we love to hear stories. Sometimes I even use them in an article, so would love to hear your story. And if you have a question, make sure you use the hashtag AskShep. I'll either answer the question right there in that social media channel, on this show, in my newsletter, or perhaps on my TV show, Be Amazing or Go Home, which can be found on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Roku, and you can go to YouTube or just go to beamazing.tv. That's beamazing.tv. All right, let's jump into our interview with Josh Liebman. Josh, welcome back to the show.
Shep, it is great to be back. I think I am now a three-peat offender.
Yes, that's what I say, three-peat offender. You are. And it's, and here's the reason. You've got great things to say, and now you have this new book coming out, The Hospitality Mentality, create raving fans through your guest experience. Now, Josh, yeah, you've got it in your hand, and I've got a copy in mine, and excited for the book, because as I read through here, first of all, you've done what I try to always do. You've made the complicated simple, because none of this is really rocket science. It's easy to understand. When you take what I've been referring to as the hospitality mentality for years, and you apply it to any industry, you make whatever the service experience is better. So, if you want to tell us in a quick, short, 30 seconds, what have you been up to since the last time that we talked? But I want to dive into this book and get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the quick 30-second elevator pitch for the book.
Okay, time's up. Oh, that wasn't quite 30
is when looking at your service culture, it is about recognizing that your guests don't need you. They could do anything aside from doing business with you. And the actions that you take show them that you intentionally want to exceed their very high expectations so that they do business with you again, and that they tell everyone they know to do business with you as well. And that is done through the intangible service elements of your business, regardless of the industry. How's that for, I think that was around 30 seconds.
Yeah, I know. That's a great, I think that you summarized it really, really well, because, and by the way, some of it is intangible from the standpoint of customers don't see that behind the scenes, there's a process. And by the way, you use the word guest. I may use customer. People understand that your background is in attractions, theme parks, events where you would have guests, and that's how they refer to them, as customers. By the way, there are some companies like Lexus refers to their customers as guests. Obviously, in a hotel, you would refer to them that way. So I think you did a great job articulating, again, taking somewhat what people say, I don't get my hands around it. You make the complicated simple. All right, let's get into the new book, The Hospitality Mentality. I was reading the book, the first chapter, and by the way, you grabbed me with this title, Get Rid of Your Customers. Give us some insight on that. Now, we're not going to give everybody everything in the book, but this is a good one, because it's like, well, what do you mean get rid of it? Isn't the whole idea to keep your customer?
I figured I would start out on a controversial note in the book, just to grab attention. So I'm glad that jumped out at you. The idea is that if you look at everyone that comes in as a customer, you're thinking about the dollars that they're worth to your business. Now, is that a good thing? Absolutely, that's a good thing. But as we look at the mindset and what we refer to as the hospitality mentality, if you're only looking at the transaction, if you're only looking at the dollar that they are spending, sometimes we tend to separate ourselves from the experience that we are delivering. So my mindset, has always been, don't call them customers, call them guests, or maybe there's another word that fits in better with the business. Even something like clients, you can call your partners instead, something like that. Many years ago, I remember, it was one of my first days at one of my first jobs working in my industry, which is theme parks and attractions and tourism. And I was a ride operator at a roller coaster. And I remember on my first break on one of my first days, I was talking to another employee and said something like, what if a customer does X, Y, Z? And she corrected me. She said, first of all, we don't call the people who come visit the park as customers. We call them guests. And that really stuck with me. It really resonated with me, because if you think about your business and all the people that you're serving, instead of thinking of them as customers who are buying something, if you reframe the mindset of thinking of, what if there were guests coming into my home, right? If, let's say, Shep, if I were to have you over for dinner, you wouldn't say, I'm going over to Josh's house for dinner because I'm hungry and I'm going to get food and leave, right? If you come over for dinner, yeah, I'm gonna feed you, right? There's not gonna be the hunger anymore, right? But I also wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm having customers over for dinner. No, I'm having a guest over for dinner. So it extends beyond the transaction and allows you to now build the framework for that service culture that treats everyone like a guest.
Now, I'm not pushing back, but I'm going to throw out a concept. I want to get your take on this. I believe it's important to understand what the average customer is worth, because there are some customers that may be worth a whole lot more and some that are worth hardly anything at all. But on average, a customer is worth X. Not only do I believe it's important to know it, I think it's important to share it with employees who interact with customers, guests, clients, partners, whatever you want to call them. And the reason is because when you start to recognize what the average customer is worth and you treat everybody the right way, the same way, obviously, if you know somebody's a better customer, you could probably personalize the experience. And I know you've got a little bit in here on personalization, but which I think comes in the wow moments chapter. You talked about your story about at the hotel, and obviously they personalize the experience, knowing your background, knowing you were a point. You had how many, whatever the program you were on, your high status, and they personalize. So I get that you would do that, but the example I used in one of my books was somebody came, I think it was mason jars. Somebody had come in to return a mason jar. It was so inexpensive, and the employee was frustrated. And then the employee was reminded that one little interaction or transaction is one piece of a whole lot of transactions and interactions that they have with you. And understanding what their lifetime value is worth means you're going to take care of them in that little thing that doesn't seem so important. Makes sense?
It makes 100% sense. And in the book, what I really want to focus on, what I really want to stress to everyone who reads it, is that it's not just about providing a great experience, right? And not just about calling them guests instead of customers, but really looking at the entire lifetime value that they do bring to the organization. And with this mindset, and then by delivering this hospitality mentality, it ultimately grows their lifetime value. There's a whole chapter on service recovery and resolution. So that person who came back to return the mason jar, the mindset would say, all right, this is just one instance out of however many transactions that we have. And if we screw this up, if we do this wrong right now, we're going to lose their future business. So that's the point. Come back, right? And they're not going to tell other people to do it as well. So that service culture is going to say, you know what? We are going to refund your money for, in this particular example, right? We are going to recover from the service failure because we do want you coming back and we want to keep you as a guest.
So I think a good metric, if you want to look at metrics, is how do we increase the lifetime value of a customer and recognize I don't know. Do we need to take also a look at, and I'm just pontificating here and wondering and thinking with another fellow colleague expert, is do we need to also take a look at how many transactions they make? Would I rather have a customer that gives me $1,000 in 10 transactions or $1,000 in one transaction? And you might think, well, I want the one that's easiest, the biggest one with one, but I kind of like the repeat business. If I become the part of the fabric of their life, and I have a chance at growing with that customer. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, especially because now if they have those 10 transactions, well, now they're probably going to do an 11th, right? So lifetime value could potentially be higher than that one person that comes in and spends $1,000.
Right. And the goal is, what can I do to become even bigger and better to them, which is the beautiful thing of what Amazon did. They started with books and they figured out how to do everything else. And they started subscription services and different models. And we can go on. Hey, you talk, I love the word secret, and you have the secret to driving loyalty. Give us a nugget on that one.
Yeah. So if you break down what loyalty really is, in the world we're living in, loyalty, I think, has actually lost a lot of its meaning, because today people think about loyalty programs. They think about points, and they think about status, and they think about what it is that they are earning with, frankly, this made up currency that, has just evolved over the last, several years or few decades or so. But what if you take all of that away? What's left?
Right.
What are people actually loyal to? So I will preface this by saying I'm not against loyalty programs. You talked about how, yes, I do have lifetime platinum status with, Bonvoy, Marriott's reward programs. I'm currently platinum on United, at least for a few more weeks or so till the end of the year. But what about those businesses that maybe don't necessarily have a loyalty program, or they do? There's a restaurant in my neighborhood we go to often. I honestly forget that I have a loyalty, membership with them. They ask me at the end of the meal when they give my bill, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Here is my number. We need to make the experience something to be loyal to. So when we think about what it is that a loyal guest or a loyal customer, perhaps in certain instances, does, they come back. So they continue to do business with you, and they tell others. So those are the two biggest things. And in some cases, they defend you when you need it. If you pull up a Facebook page of a business that someone has, put a complaint on it, you'll often see their loyal followers doing the work of the business of the replies and really coming to your help. And sometimes saying things that the business wouldn't necessarily say, but maybe you're thinking it. But hey, here's other people, other guests, our loyal followers who are really helping to advocate and evangelize our business.
Yep. So great word, evangelize. I was going to use that word to describe it as well. It's really not that hard to do, to understand. Most loyalty programs, to your point, are discount programs. Spend this much money, you get this many points, or come in this many times, you get this many points, and then we give you a discount the next time you come in, or every fifth sandwich is free. That's called a 20% discount. Now that's a loyalty program, not to be confused with customer loyalty. And again, to your point, I think both are very valid, and we should consider them. But understand what true loyalty is. You take away the points, what's left? Being loyal to the experience. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to get into the hyper-personalized experience. And I also, you have a great concept of what wow moments are. I love when we can truly wow a customer, but we can't do it every time. I want to get your take on that. All that and a whole lot more when we get back. This is Amazing Business Radio. We are talking with Josh Liebman, and we're talking about his newest book, the latest book, a great book, The Hospitality Mentality. Don't go away. We're coming right back. One of my favorite sayings is that customer service isn't a department. It's a philosophy. And it's a philosophy that must be embraced by everyone in the organization all the time, and that's 24/7. So if customer service is important to you, and I know it is, then you will love our virtual training, the ultimate on-demand customer service and experience training program that you can access anytime, anywhere. Now, the course content applies to everyone, regardless of position and responsibility, from senior executives to the most recently hired and everyone in between. You'll discover tips, ideas, and strategies that won't cost your company a fortune, but will produce what I call moments of magic, those positive experiences, and it will happen at every level of your organization. So go to Customer Service VT. That's V as in virtual, T as in training. That's customerservicevt.com. It's time to get customer focused.
You're listening to Amazing Business Radio with best-selling author and customer service and business expert, Shep Hyken.
We're back at Amazing Business Radio talking with Josh Liebman about his latest book, The Hospitality Mentality. Create raving fans through your guest experience. Josh, love the idea of hyper-personalization. And when you use the word hyper, it means you're going deep. You're really getting right into it. Personalization is so much more than just using your name. So give us some insights to what hyper-personalization is.
Yeah. So
Please.
the key is that delivering a personalized experience or a hyper personalized experience is where you make the guest feel like they are the only one that matters, even if it is only for a brief period of time. And this is something that I call it kind of an accordion style strategy, because there are some times where you can get really personal, and sometimes you can develop a very strong rapport with the guest that now you're becoming friends at the end of the conversation. And there are other times where maybe it's just a few seconds. So I'll give you kind of an example. I lived in Orlando for many years, and I worked in the theme park industry for a long time. And you could probably anticipate that the week between Christmas and New Year's is the busiest time of the year. It seems like living there, it felt like everyone in the world all descended on Orlando for their vacations. And one of the biggest complaints that we would get is not so much, people would complain, it's crowded, the lines are long, but there's one thing that stuck out in particular that we would see a lot. And guests said they felt like they were being herded like cattle through the queues, through the experience. It was almost as if they were complaining that the operators were trying to be so efficient that it made them feel, frankly, like a customer, like a number, right? Like a click of the turnstile or just someone else who's coming through. So if we look at that and we say, okay, well, how do we actually personalize the experience? What are some things that we can do to make the guest feel like they are the only one that matters? I'll give you another example of something that happened to me recently. I live in Chicago, and I was flying to Atlanta from O'Hare. So I was going from, I think, the 5th busiest airport in the world to the busiest. And the TSA agent is looking at everyone's IDs, and then he's looking at the passenger in front of them in line, using their name and making a polite remark. So the woman in front of me, he says her name. I forgot what her name was. And then he says, "Nice earrings, by the way." She said, "Oh, thank you very much." I go up, I hand him my ID. He hands it back to me, and he goes, "Safe travels, Joshy boy." Now, Shep, that was 8 months ago or so, but I now
You're
remember
still talking about it.
Yeah, and it was TSA, the last place you would expect someone to deliver a personalized experience. So they're using the tools that they have right there of, hey, I'm looking at everyone's IDs. I know everyone's name. I can use that. And then I can look at them, and I've only got a few seconds. So what can I do during this few seconds of this interaction to make it just a little bit more pleasant than what they expected coming through TSA, which is very functional, very security driven, very safety driven. But there's a layer on top of that this particular agent realized he could add to create a hyper personalized experience, even if it was only for a couple seconds at a time, without negatively impacting the efficiency of that operation.
Right. So here's some interesting things. Number one, 100% spot on. And there's a couple of reasons why you would want to do this. If you're in this type of a job, number one, it breaks the monotony. You force yourself to interact with somebody and say something unique and different. And I love it. The other day, I was watching a flight attendant greet people as they came on, and she had something nice to say to every single person walking on. I love when that happens. Now, here's the flip side of this. A number of years ago, I'm working with a major convenience store chain, and I'm talking to their head of security, and they train the staff to do exactly what you're talking about. When somebody's there to check in, or even when they walk in the store, they greet them. "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever. Why do they do that? Number one, it's a better customer experience. Number two, if these people coming in have nefarious intent, as if they're going to rob the store, the moment that clerk makes eye contact and says, "How you doing?" they turn around and walk out. So in different security checkpoints in various airports, you may go through several points, and the agents are trained to watch how you interact to their friendly comments. They want to see and they know exactly the kind of person you are. That's what they're trained for. And it's amazing. I know that's a whole nother side of it, but creating great service is also in alignment with creating secure service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's another chapter for your next book.
Absolutely. They tie in perfectly together. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump over to wow moments. I have this whole thing is you can't wait for a wow moment to blow the customer away, but when they're there, you should take advantage of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that this might be the type of thing that you can't necessarily do with every guest every single time, which differs from the personalize the experience. Like that TSA agent had that opportunity with every guest every single time. But these are things where when we implement this type of wow moment, the experience exceeds the expectation by such a high amount that the things that we want them to do to make them a loyal guest, we want them to come back, we want them to tell others, really just amplifies their ability to do that. So the thing is, in my industry, a lot of times we say, we want to create memories that last a lifetime. And that is a beautiful sentence, right? It's soft, it's warm, it's fuzzy. But what too often we don't necessarily think about is that that's the business model, because we're providing an intangible experience, which means when they leave, the experience is over. And what do they have left from it is the memory. The strength of that memory determines the value of that experience. The strength of that memory determines, are they going to come back? The strength of that memory determines, what are they going to say to other people? Are they going to post a review online? Are they going to post something on Instagram or on social media about it? So when we think about wow moments, we can't think of it as being something that is, nice to do every once in a while. But we need to build that into the fabric of our organization if we want to intentionally drive loyalty. So as we break down what a wow moment really is, there's a lot of things that it can be very abstract because it's intangible. So it's actually hard to define. If you think about any example of a wow moment that maybe you've experienced, maybe you think, oh, I want to do that to my guests, but it's not always an apples to apples comparison. So we break it down and we say, well, what exactly is a wow moment? Well, it goes beyond what the guest expects, right? So it is a surprise and delight moment. It's both surprise and delight.
You have this listed in the book, I believe.
Yeah. Sometimes surprises are not delightful. We address those in another chapter of the book as well. But it's a surprise and delight moment. So it goes beyond what the guest expects. It also goes beyond what the individual, let's say the employee, the team member, or the organization needed to do. So it went beyond basically your job duties of what you had to do to complete that function. It doesn't negatively impact any other guest's experience. So you're not doing something at the expense of anyone else who's coming and trying to have a positive experience. And then the last part is, a lot of people think, well, a wow moment, that sounds really expensive, right? A long time ago, the Magic Kingdom, during the Year of a Million Dreams, they would give away a night in the castle to a guest. They called that a magical moment, right? There are a lot of different types of magical moments, but you look at that and you think, well, that's really expensive. But there are so many things that you have to offer to your guests that have such high value, but they have little or no cost to the organization itself. So they can actually be done quite economically, oftentimes for free.
Yep. So much is swarming in my head right now. But a wow moment, first of all, I believe an example of a wow moment that is like, it's not over the top, blow me away, but would get somebody to come back is, if I'm in a restaurant and I'm with my wife and the server overhears that it's my anniversary or it's one of our birthdays, they bring a little cake with a candle. They aren't going to do that every time. Okay. So there's two things. Number one, you got to find out, are you celebrating a special occasion? That's a great question to ask. The host, or at the time the reservation is made, that's the time to ask. Make a note and surprise them at the end. You can't count on overhearing a conversation. So the point I'm making is that you can operationalize little moments like this if you think about how to put it into the process. So you can't like eavesdrop the whole time you're serving them, but somebody else can give you that information, which I think is really kind of important. The other thing about a wow moment is oftentimes wow comes as a result of something bad that gets turned around. Okay. And I know you talk about service recovery. Goal is not to just, fix the problem, but restore confidence, win the customer back, that kind of thing. But anyway, I throw all these out that, so much. My belief is if you want to be amazing, it's not about wow moments. It's about consistency and predictability, and the word always followed by something positive. They always are friendly. They're always helpful. They're always getting back to me when I call them, whatever it is, it's something good. So Yeah, we are almost to the end of our time, and I love to ask this question. And this goes so fast, and you've given us some great insights. And by the way, we've only tackled 3 or 4 concepts in this book, which is about 220 or 30 pages long. So there's a lot left. Give us one final nugget that you want to share.
Sure, absolutely. You're right. This time just flew by right here. The final nugget that I would like to share, and I alluded to it earlier, but I'll bring it back right here, is that your guests don't need to do business with you. Their alternative options are literally endless and unlimited. And your goal is to use the interactions that you take and the service interactions that you have with your guests to show them that you recognize that they don't need you and they can be doing anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a great note to end on. They could go elsewhere. What are you doing to make sure they come to you? It's that simple. Josh, great to see you again. Thanks for being back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the book again is called The Hospitality Mentality. Create raving fans through your guest experience. This book is sold everywhere Amazon is, and other places as well. So just go on Amazon or go to your local bookseller and they will find this book for you. Thanks for being here, Josh. Great to see you again.
My pleasure, Shep. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
My pleasure too. All right, everybody, wrapping it up. That's another episode, another interview, and we will be back next week and we'll do it all again. So until that time, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.